of Growth live chat. I'm Greg Brinkley, and as always, I'm joined with my good pal up in Frisco, Sammy Gonzalez. What's up, Sammy?
Hey there, Greg. Coming at you live tonight with a hat on, getting a little puffy in the hair. I need to go get a trim. I'm not sure about you. How's the haircut doing for you?
The great thing about my haircut is I've got the world's best barber, and I'm actually able to have an appointment every morning at about 5:45 where I go and touch it up and clean it up good with a no guard on the sides and the back and a one guard on the top. Takes me about 4, maybe 5 minutes tops for my haircut every day. So it's a pretty sweet gig.
Nice. Well, yeah, I had to put this on today. I noticed I haven't been out in a while. We're still in the hotbed of the whole COVID mess, and I don't know if we're in the secondary spike or we're still at the start of the first one. But it just seems like every single day is another day in which we have to do something different and learn a little bit more and figure things out as we go along. So I know it's been an adjustment and way of life. So that's the hat. So pardon my not southerly gentleman. What's it called? I don't know. Being a southern gentleman by taking my hat off while inside, I should say.
Well, I think you have a COVID-19 exception, and I think that's kind of becoming par for the course. But I think, in this time frame that we're living right now, where the COVID-19 pandemic and the crisis that we're experiencing, not only in this country, but around the world, has forced us all to, I think probably the key word for 2020 is quote unquote pivot.
Yeah.
And so we've all had to adjust our lives and reprioritize things. And you and I both, we kind of drink from the same cup of optimism on when there's challenges, that equals opportunities. And one of the biggest opportunities that we have during this COVID-19 2020 pandemic crisis, challenge, obstacle, however you want to call it, is the opportunity to really focus on self-development. And it just so happens that you and I have published a book called The Pursuit of Growth that is all about self-development and really focusing on prioritizing growth in the fundamental areas and the key areas of life. And we would love for anyone that's listening to this chat right now to go to our website, which is livetpg.com, and check out a description of the book. You can also follow us on our Facebook and our Instagram and our LinkedIn at Pursuit of Growth, or you can type in Live TPG to pull those up. Join our communities, follow us, purchase the book. We really think that it has a lot of value and really will give you an actionable plan to be able to pursue growth and growth habits and really what we consider the important areas of life.
Yeah, Greg, I mean, you summed it up right there. And this is an interesting time. And so for us to be able to release this book after a long 3 years of working on it, I think it really hit at the right time from the people that have started to receive the book and as it's now live and available for purchase, shameless plug. But people are saying like this book, has helped them through some challenging times. This book has reminded them of some of the stuff that they need to do. Or it's just a good refresher. And I think that's hitting on all the marks that we were looking for when producing this book. But who would have thought a global pandemic would shut the world down in which like no other that we've seen, at least in our lifetimes and a couple people's lifetimes. But I think it's a great chance for people to understand the values in the book, the understanding of how to set those goals and that personal development. And I think today's talk that we're going to talk about is actually chapter number 13. I've got it here with my special bookmark. And that is the chapter on faith in God. And I think one of the biggest things that we talked about when writing this book, which that's the last chapter of the book, was we went back and forth a couple times, maybe on that chapter more than most of them, because I think I was leaning more towards calling it just faith in general. But then you actually convinced me to let's have it as faith in God. And we'll talk a little bit more about your story, which is told more in the book a little bit later. But I think that when we talked about this live stream that we're doing, want to kind of explore a little of our thoughts on this particular topic.
Yeah, when we're writing this book, and kind of the pursuit of growth lifestyle for people to go to our website, and you can look at a quick snapshot of kind of what the pursuit of lifestyle, the growth is all about. But we focus in really prioritizing growth in 11 focus areas of life. And the 11th area that we talk about in the book is faith in God. And it's our belief, and again, people believe a lot of different things, but we feel like one of the most important things in terms of our life here on this earth is understanding, what we believe in terms of our faith, whether that's a faith in God, whether that's a faith in science. When you talk about faith in God, that opens up a Pandora's box of, well, what do you mean by that? What religion, is the true religion? What are these questions and answers in terms of a broad range of subject items? It can be very, very complicated. It can be very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people to talk about, but we really want to emphasize that it doesn't have to be that way. And we really want to take the stigma away of making subjects and conversations about faith something that causes defensiveness in people, something that causes arguments and anger and conflict. But really, what if we can approach faith with curiosity and candor and respect and kindness and really encouragement, and ultimately pursuing people to understand that in terms of faith and science and God, what are you doing in your life right now to actually answer the questions that you have, to explore what is true versus what is false, to really put what you believe as a priority in your life? Because at the end of the day, it's really the ultimate answer to why we're here and how we should be living our lives. And I feel like it's something that we should all be exploring, and we should all be prioritizing our lives in terms of what we believe. Is our beliefs based on our feelings? Is it based on our assumptions? Or is it based on the actual work and I guess, for lack of a better term, the learning that we do in what we know about religions and what we know about God, what's been provided for us? And so for me, it's been probably the most impactful area of my life in terms of my growth and my spiritual belief. And it's been something that I'm really proud to share, but it's also something that I'm also very fascinated and curious to learn other people's thoughts and other people's beliefs, and to have just candid conversations and really learn from other people as well.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things we talked about was to explore a little bit more about kind of our both sides of what we think and what we feel during this. And I agree. Like, I think one of the biggest things that I've ever heard, just in general, from a way to approach conversations, be it difficult or be it easy, is to kind of listen to understand versus listen to respond. And I think that's what a lot of people do whenever you come to the conversations of faith and even like politics. What do they always say? Like, don't have conversations about faith and politics like at the dinner table or whatever, because more than likely what's going to happen is someone's going to get defensive, like you mentioned, or someone's going to just have a disproportionate view of what the other person thinks, and they may be less level-headed and be able to grasp the topics that are being told. But I agree with you. It's fascinating to hear when someone is like truly rooted in their faith, or someone that just maybe doesn't have any whatsoever. To listen to why, to listen to understand, I think is a key aspect of that. And myself, growing up, I was born and raised Catholic, and confirmed Catholic and all that. And as time went on, just kind of grew away from the church and the actual going to a Catholic church. But still, believe what I believe and all that kind of stuff, and still, go to mass with my parents and all that kind of, whenever we do go. Hasn't been recently because of the pandemic by any means, but still go there, still understand it, still know what they taught in that religion. But I'm pretty much, I would say, more agnostic than anything at this point in time, because I do believe in God and I do believe in the higher powers. But yeah, I don't believe that there's a necessarily one box that has it all figured out. I think there's a lot to learn from a lot of different people. And I think that there's so many people that have thoughts about that higher level and that higher power, that how can everybody be wrong but one group of people, or vice versa? You know, how can everybody be right, you know, at the same time, which is interesting to me too. It's like that everyone does believe in this kind of greater power, and you know, if it's their God or their science or their trees or whatever it is, you know. But it fascinates me to just learn more and more and more about what other people think. And I do think that if the world would have more candid conversations about just what they feel and not be embarrassed to be able to say like, hey, I don't know.
I
um
love that.
hey, you know, yeah, hey, you know, I like, for me, like I thought one way as I was growing up, and then, you know, I still have aunts and uncles and moms and dad, you know, my mom and dad and everyone's still pretty staunch in their beliefs, but you know, I think they kind of know where I lean with everything. um and so I just kind of a little more open and fluid to what I believe and what I understand, but no knock on them, you know, whatsoever. And not saying they're right or wrong by any means, but if that those types of conversations can start happening more, about faith in general, with a regimented ideal into how you're going to study and learn more about yourself and what you believe, I think that a lot more people would find that they're probably more aligned, than they think they are.
Yeah, I love what you said about the you know, the candor and being able to have these conversations, and just how important it would be, and how just how helpful it would be to be able to be honest and open about what you know and what you don't know. And you know, my personal story, I grew up in the Baptist church, which is a Christian denomination, for the majority of my life, and was raised learning about you know, the Christian faith. And about the time that I got out of college, I started having a lot of issues in my life in terms of really, really living my life in the wrong way, and really going against a lot of the morals that I was kind of brought up to, and which is what a lot of the book talks about. But I really started questioning my faith. And you know, I had questions on you know, how do I know the Bible that I've been told is the book of God and the Word of God? How do I know that's true? How do I know that this God, as it's been spoken about in the Christian faith, is the real God? Is Jesus Christ really the Son of God, that became human here on earth to die for our sins? And on and on and on and on. And the more that I kind of drifted away from my faith, the more I had less belief in God. And I kind of got to the point where, you know, I was borderline agnostic, to where I really just didn't understand what I believed. And I got to a point to where I decided this is an important enough part of my life that I really need to start putting some emphasis in it. And so I literally started writing down my questions. And I still have a document to this day on my computer of over 100, and I think it's like 150 questions that I had about religion, about God, about science. If this, then what about that? And if God is real, then how does this happen? I mean, every question that you can imagine, I literally wrote down. And over the course of approximately a year, it was actually a little bit longer than a year, I dedicated my life to really exploring these questions and really diving into, of all the different faiths in this world, whether it's Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Mormonism, the Church of Scientology, you know, you name it, what is it that I believe? Or do I not believe in any of that? Do I believe that science is the answer? Or do I believe that there's something that doesn't fall in any of those buckets? And over the course of that exploration and really challenging my faith, me personally, actually got me to grow stronger in my beliefs in what I believe is the Christian faith. And it was something that now today I'm so proud that I put that work in, and it's given me the confidence, me personally, to know what I believe. Now that doesn't mean that I have all the answers. It doesn't mean that I still don't have questions, and it doesn't believe that I still have times where my faith gets shaken. It absolutely does. But now I have this solid foundation of what it is that I truly believe, that's based on the research, the work that I've done. And that research was everything from using the internet to explore online, reading books, talking to people. whether it was people of different faiths, different denominations, people that believed in God, people that don't believe in God, and really learning, the foundations of their beliefs and where they were. And it's one of the greatest learning experiences that I think I've ever had in my life. And to be quite honest with you, it's a learning experience that will never stop. I really think that as I continue to grow and as long as I'm on this earth, I want to continue to explore and learn more about my faith. But I also have a very, very, very high interest in learning more about people of other faiths, and then people that don't have any type of faith in God at all and maybe consider themselves atheists. And I think listening, like you said, I think that was a really good point you made. It's so important to listen to other people and not be so quick to try to convince people to what you believe, but share what you believe in terms of your actions, share what you believe in terms of love and service, and be able to have open and candid conversations. And don't make the primary focus of conversations about your faith in God or lack in faith in God. Don't make it about trying to convince the other person, but sharing your personal experience, share your stories, ask them questions, let them ask you questions, and really grow relationships with people and really create a safe space to be able to have these conversations. And for me, that's been just such a blessing to my life, is really to be able to learn more from other people. And then in terms of doing that, they've allowed me to share what I've learned over the last 10, 15 years in terms of my faith, to be able to share what I believe is the true word of God, or the true purpose of our lives here on this earth. But I'll kind of sum up what I'm saying now with going back to something that you said. In terms of my beliefs in God and in the Bible, he talks about we will not know in full while we're alive on this earth. There are so many questions. There are so many things that we're not going to be able to understand. And we've got to give all of ourselves and each other grace and love, and understanding that there's so much we don't know. So let's not use faith and God and science and our beliefs as a point of anger and contentiousness, but let's use it as an opportunity to explore and learn. And I think that's something that's drastically missing in our world. And it's something that I hope that when people read our book, they'll be encouraged to do two things. How can I explore my beliefs and challenge myself? And how can I be more courteous to people that believe differently than I do?
Yeah, and speaking of revelations, I just did something. I just Googled something while I was here. I don't know if you saw me looking off to the side and typing on my computer, but I was like, you know what? I think I just had a revelation. I think I've been using the wrong word, um, because I'm a techie. So, like the word tech agnostic, platform agnostic means that you're not beholden to any certain platform. So, like an Apple computer or or Android computer. Agnostic, tech agnostic means you're just any operating system works for you, whatever. So I'd always kind of use that phrase as like, I was agnostic in my religious belief, but I'm actually just non-denominational. That's kind of more what I, because I do believe in God and I do believe there's a greater power out there, not to be known if it's known or unknown or if we could ever fathom it. As the I had to look up agnostic. I was like, I want to make sure that I'm saying that right. So
Yeah.
I took a quick couple of seconds to just do that too. And I looked and I was like, well, look, right here. And it says, so the true definition of agnosticism is the view that the existence of God, of the divine or the supernatural, is unknown or unknowable. Well, I don't think it's unknown or unknowable. I mean, I guess it is kind of true to me, but I do believe there is a God. And so, and I've leaned towards the Christian faith more than anything. But I think that's interesting that, like, because I just had to, like, true to the nature of the book and what we talk about, it's like you got to be learning and be growing. So I was like,
Yeah.
make sure that's what it is. So I would say, instead of saying that I'm more agnostic, I'm more non-denominational. I don't follow a particular religion, but I'm fascinated to learn about other religions, and even like some that seem to be further away from anything that I've ever believed in, like Hinduism or even some of the what are they called? Kind of more earthbound spiritual.
Yeah, Buddhism, those type of things.
Not Buddhism so much, because I mean I love some of the things that they preach and talk about too, but like the tree elves, or the the more earthly spirits and that kind of stuff too. Like that's a little bit further out than I've ever explored personally. But yeah, so I just thought that was I believe our audience with that a little bit too is like, oh yeah, well, see, just right now, you just saw that you can learn and grow.
Oh, absolutely. And and in terms of the Christian faith, you have a section of different kind of branches, whether it's Baptists, Lutherans, uh, Episcopalians, Methodists. You have all these different kind of branches of Christianity that, for the most part, agree on the fundamental elements of Christianity, which is basically, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin who was fully God, fully man, and ultimately lived his life with the purpose of dying for our sins, so that those that believe in him will be cleansed of our sins and will spend eternity with God in paradise and heaven, after our time here on this earth ends. And for me personally, I attend now a non-denominational Bible-based church, which doesn't fall into any of those other sects, but really focuses on what does the Bible, which we believe is the Word of God, that was written by man but influenced by God. What strictly does the Bible say, and not necessarily bring in the human elements of tradition that have happened over centuries and centuries, that whether the Baptist faith or the Methodist faith, which again is still Christianity, has taken on. But one of the things that we talk about in the book, Sammy, and I'm glad that you mentioned this, is from a very high level, and I'm actually going to read from the book now. Um, you can actually put people, I believe, in one of 5 categories in terms of faith. And so you have one, people who believe in the existence of a God and live their life confidently committed to following a specific religion or school of thought. Now, I believe I fall into that category as a process of years and years and years of work, where I do believe in the Christian faith, and I'm fully committed to that specific religion and that school of thought. And it's been a challenge and a lot of work, and it's something that I continue to work in. The second area is where I was prior to me really starting to work on all this, and that is people who believe in the existence of God. They consider themselves a part of a specific religion, but they're really uncommitted and unengaged with that religion or school of thought. And for most of my life, I was squarely in that area because there was just so many things I just didn't know. And that's okay. That's okay. That's an okay place to be. Again, we want to encourage people, if that's where you're at, continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to challenge yourself, continue to use the resources and the people around you to continue to grow. The third area is the group of people that believe in some type of a higher power, but they have no religious affiliation. And so there's a lot of people that will say, well, you know what, I believe there's a God. I just go outside, I look up at the sky, and I'm like, this has all got to come from something. But really, I really just don't know where it came from, or how, how I'm supposed to be focused on, a relationship with some type of higher power, but there's got to be something there. The fourth category are people who do not believe in the existence of God, and they consider themselves atheists. And so that's a sect of people that are convinced. So they're really actually close to that first group that I talked about, in terms of they're committed to the understanding that that's truly what they believe, is that, we are a product of something other than a higher power. And once our time on this earth ends, we're gone. And the fifth group are people that really kind of fall into what I consider agnostic, is I just don't know. And so, I'm not sure if there's a God or if there's not, and I'm just not sure where I'm at. And quite honestly, anyone that's listening to us right now, anybody that's reading this book, I believe can probably have some pretty compelling challenges to everything that I just said in terms of those 5 categories, and probably turn those 5 categories into 2 categories, or turn those 5 categories into 20 categories.
Right.
If then what that. But what I really hope our point is, and our emphasis is, it's not about the categories, it's about growth. Wherever you are in your spiritual faith or lack of spiritual faith, the challenge that we want to encourage people to do is ask yourself, where am I at now? And to explore and say, what can I be learning to either A, help myself grow in my confidence for whatever it is that I do believe, or maybe growing in areas that I did not know. And what if by educating myself on religion and science and other people's school of thoughts, how can that help me grow in my beliefs? And in my opinion, Sammy, and I'm very passionate about this, I think this is probably the number one lifelong goal of lifelong learning that we can take on is why we're here, how we came to be, and what's going to happen to us after we're dead. I mean, is there any greater question in the history of the world? And I think it's something worth exploring. And we just want to encourage people to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many movies have been written about the why are we here, or trying to explain that or whatever. Yeah, the Earth's life's greatest mystery, right? More than anything ever else. So it's
Yeah.
appropriate that it's like, okay, let's just say that in the next year, after you've bought our book, of course, you've gone through and you're squared away on all 10, and then you get to number 11, which is faith in God. um I don't think you could ever stop, right? It's another thing that we talk about. It's like you can never stop learning. It's a process, and you'll never be squared away on the other 10. You can always grow and develop and be better. But I do believe that's why I think that it's important to have this as a part of the chapter too, because, and it doesn't have to be something that consumes your entire life, just like we talk about with everything, but it can be something that you strive to learn and grow, especially like if you have kids like I do. It's something to explore with them and understand with them, like where they're thinking, where they're leaning. And then even for me, like going back to my parents and understanding why it is they believe what they believe. And some people, just kind of go along with what they were raised, and it's like, oh, well, that's what we did, and that's who I am, and that's what I'm going to be. But I think exploring and understanding and having those conversations, it's not only is it going to be fascinating and be helpful in your life, no matter what you're learning, but it's going to be helpful, just going about the way of learning how to speak with people that think differently than you. So I'm glad that we included it, and I think it's one of those chapters that once people get to it, it is the last one in the book, but I think that once people get to it, it's going to open up a lot more questions. And I'd be surprised if we didn't get a lot of people reaching out to want to explore that chapter with us a little bit further, because as you can tell just by in this conversation ourselves, we're not on the polar ends of the spectrum of categories, but I probably float between 2 and 3 of those categories, or 2 different categories, probably more than anything. That because I'm still learning and I'm still growing, and I fade in some areas and then I grow in some other areas too. So I think that's important to note as well. So people, when they pick up the book or they start reading the chapter, they don't have to think like, oh, they're going to tell you that you must believe in XYZ by any means. It's far from the truth. It's we need to explore it and understand it and have confidence, like you mentioned, in what you do believe.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to faith is personal,
Mhm.
and I think the message that I really want to present to people is in my experience. And so when I say in my experience, again, that is limited to my sphere of experiences. So it's not this isn't painting everything with a broad brush, but a lot of people that I've talked to, and when we talk about faith, there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions. And one of the things that I'll ask is, what have you done to answer that question? And likely the answer is nothing.
Mhm.
Or I just feel this way because of this reason. So my answer to, my faith is based on just a feeling. And I think if you approach any aspect in life with just that type of, for lack of a better word, lethargic, mindset or lethargic approach, you're not going to have anything solid to stand on. And so faith, like anything else, takes work, it takes exploration, it takes commitment, it takes challenging. I think you need to surround yourself with other people that can help you. And I think you've got to be confident and be open to asking questions and not embarrassed, not defensive, but really just use this as an exploration. And again, for me, I'm very passionate about it because it's something that I personally went through. And for me, as somebody that was very wobbly in my faith, as a result of the journey that I went on, now that I'm so solid in what I believe, it just, when you go through something like that, you become passionate about it and you want to share. But I also have to realize that everybody's kind of coming from a different spot. And so ultimately what I want to do is not try to force my beliefs on them, but encourage them to explore it, to be a tool and to be a guide, to be helpful if I can, to share my story, to share my faith. But really, honestly, again, going back to what we first talked about is listening. And I like what you said about, so often we're so quick to respond and try to correct, and so quick to try to force our opinions on other people. And if your true goal is to influence somebody into what you believe, that's the worst. That's the absolute worst strategy you can take on. But if you can grow a legit relationship with somebody and really be open and transparent with your beliefs and listening to theirs as well, I think that just opens up circumstances for our faith in God or our lack of faith in God to grow. But for me personally, ultimately, I feel like if people really, really put this to the test, they really study and research this, I think they're going to come to an answer that there is a God, that he loves us beyond what any religion even shares as a part of their faith. The grace that our Heavenly Father, I believe, has for us is something that should be a spark of motivation and just awe in all of our lives. And I really want people to go down that path.
Yeah, I think if they do they take the time and do the research and ask the right questions and talk to the right people, they're going to begin exploring that path. That's going to lead to something. It's going to lead to probably a lot of answers that they need, or a lot of questions will be answered throughout some of those conversations and journeys as well. So, yeah, I think just as true to the nature of the book and the way it's written, that there's questions to ask yourself. There's time for reflection inside the book, and then there's also time for action. So I think now, as we kind of wrap up this live stream, at least, is there's another great opportunity to take another chapter of the book and to implement the plan and implement a process, so that you can then start to explore it a little bit more and really round out those areas in which we think that are needed. So the 11 focus areas.
Yeah. And as we wrap this up, so one of the things that we strive to do on any time we have a conversation is leave the audience with 3 action items each of what people can do. And so, do you have 3 you want to share right now for yourself, and then I'll share 3 that I think people can take on as well?
Yeah, definitely. Number one is don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, so I think that's one of the key things. Is there's, as I tell people, even like coworkers and stuff, like, we're afraid to ask a question if you don't know it. It's like, chances are someone else knows it, and you're going to find a resolution quicker. And chances are they might not know it, so you might help them find an answer, or you might be one of those people in the crowd that asked a question that 15 other people were wondering as well, and you got the clarity for them too. So don't be afraid to ask those questions. Number 2 is to listen to understand. Don't listen to respond. And that's just true in general of anything. I'm quick to do it too, but if I remind myself, as someone is spouting off some of the stuff, I think to myself, like, understand, and it just kind of, I can really get to know people pretty easily there. And then number 3, enjoy it. Enjoy learning about other people and other faiths and other religions, and even the people that are complete polar opposites of you. If someone's an atheist, or they believe in the flying spaghetti noodle monster or whatever it is, so it's whatever. It's like, understand why. And sometimes they'll troll you and sometimes they won't, but at least, hey, sometimes you can get a good laugh out of it and have some fun with it too. But enjoy the process of learning, because as we've talked about in the book, it's a great thing to do. It's a fun process.
Yeah, and I think for you and I both, and then we're transparent about this with every single chapter in this book and every subject we talk about, you and I are still pushing and learning. And, it's not about comparing against each other, but we're all on our own personal journeys in terms of growth. And there's so much more I can continue to grow in my faith and in my relationship with God. And it's something that now it's a priority in my life, and that I'm very very excited about. And it really gives me confidence in everything. But my 3 areas, or my three takeaways. One is, I really want to challenge people to ask yourself what you believe and why. Is it based on just what you've grown up understanding? Is it based on just a gut feeling, or is it based on research and evidence and truth? And I want to just encourage people to explore that. Two, I want to really kind of take something you just said. I want to challenge people to make faith a common topic of conversation, just like you would the weather and just like you would sports. It doesn't have to be something that you get defensive over. It doesn't have to be something that's a source of anger. And quite honestly, as long as you can take your ego out of it, and like you said, be willing to listen, be willing to be curious, be open and excited to learn about what other people believe and not critical. I think that that's a very, very easy thing to do in terms of being able to just have conversations, because those are going to help you to grow as well. And then the last thing, and this is going to sound like a shameless plug, and it is, but it also isn't, but I want to encourage you to buy the book, because this conversation that we've had tonight has been very high level. And we've talked a lot about, exploring your faith and what does it mean to learn and grow. Well, one of the things that I think we did really well in this book is we actually gave really good examples of how to do that. A lot of it is based on kind of the steps that I took, but also things that I learned from other people, and the relationships in my life in terms of how do you go about learning these things? How do you go about challenging your beliefs? Where are places to go to you can actually get truth? And quite honestly, there's a lot of false information about every single religion out there. There's a lot of false information about science that's out there. So how do you separate fact from fiction? We talk about this, and it's a challenge. It's not easy, but really I'm proud of the chapter in this book, because I think we lay it out to where really it encourages people to make what they believe in terms of faith, whether it's faith in God, faith in science, faith in nothing. It challenges folks to say, why do you believe that, and how can you grow? And I'm really excited. I think that's kind of what the whole book is about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad that we were able to finally get to this one. I think we've wrapped up every single chapter now so far.
I think we have.
During these live streams. So it's time to kind of mix the grab bag again. Maybe we'll pick a new subject next week as we continue back with these after having a couple of week hiatus. But we're excited to get more of these out there. And if there's a topic that other people want us to discuss as it relates into the book and to the community, and even the challenge that we're putting forth to people that are reading this book, we want people to reach out to us. So be sure to look us up via social media. Like Greg mentioned, livetpg.com has links to all our social media channels. We also can be found by looking for the Pursuit of Growth hashtag or livetpg on most social channels. But reach out, explore, have conversations with us about whatever it is in the 11 different focus areas, or some of the issues that you might be having, or if you've found a really unique way in which you process different issues and that you have overcome stuff in your past too. We'd love to hear from you too. So buy the book, leave us a comment, drop the line via social media, and be able to connect with us online, offline, and be part of the community as well. So Greg, I'll let you take us home.
Yeah, that was good. So thank you for everybody for listening tonight. Again, thank you for everybody that's bought the book. We've had an amazing response in our initial launch to kind of our friends, family, and our immediate network. And the feedback that we've gotten has been very encouraging. Thank you for the kind words. We really, really believe this can help people. And then I'll just kind of end this with if there's people that you know that you feel like would benefit from really prioritizing and focusing on personal development in their lives, feel free to reach out to Sammy or I through our website that Sammy just mentioned. And there's no better gift to give than the gift of growth. So livetpg.com, the pursuit of growth. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon. Peace.